I just answered my own question.
That was
so
good.
It's kind of Q&A now, right?
We'll do Q&A amongst ourselves up here. Oh.
So Jackie, how do you know?
So most of you, I'm not sure why this says my name. I apologize. It's important to recognize that we also have Jackie Lai with us, who is our engineering lead on Street View contributions from outside of Google. So we've got Jackie, Stafford, and myself, Charles, and we are going to take questions now for the next hour if we need to. But we are what stand between you and drinks, so don't hold back. Dan, from the front.
Can you talk about See Inside?
Yes.
You didn't expect that, did you?
No. Show of hands, who wants to hear about See Inside? Yeah, like everybody. Okay. So we 2 years ago, even before our first Street View Summit, we tipped our hat to the fact that See Inside wouldn't be around forever. Last year at the first annual Street View Summit, we said See Inside is going to be going away. Now, here we are at our second Street View Summit. See Inside is starting to go away. You're no longer seeing it everywhere. And amongst trusted pros, this is not a popular decision. I truly empathize with those of you who've been in a paradigm where you have sold 360 photos and your clients at that time expected that they would continue to have imagery through See Inside. The thing that we have to be very careful about being Google, and this, for some of you, this will sound repetitive because this is exactly what we said last year as well, is Google cannot sort of reconcile itself at just maintaining the status quo forever. We have to continue to make sure that we're listening to what our users want. And we did enough internal studies, and what we found was that users found it to be confusing, these three different entry points between Street View, which was often business view, internal imagery, See Inside, which was just as often actually the outside entry point showing the front of the business, and Photos, which was often 360 photos. So we've moved away from that, and instead we've said there's a gallery, there's this single primary entry point. There may be additional entry points in the future, that is other thumbnails, we're still looking into that. But in the meantime, the thing that does need to reign supreme is ranking. So if you have concerns about the fact that you shot this great imagery and it's not surfaced through See Inside, I think those are valid if we're not ranking the imagery correctly. I think thankfully Stafford pointed to the fact that we are making strides right now on improving ranking. That is where I think we need to hold ourselves accountable and continue to improve it. We're never going to get it perfect. We never get any sort of web page search ranking necessarily perfect because it's a very subjective interpretation what the best image should be. But we'll continue to work on that so that if somebody shoots 50 of these 360 photos and connects them all and they're very high quality and they're beautiful, that they're not somehow ranked 3 positions below some standalone 360 photos that were shot with a smartphone.
Something I'd add real quick is that our goal at the end of the day with the gallery is to drive as many clicks as possible to the place page, right? And in that way, we really share alignment with the business. So we're not going to do anything that results in fewer clicks to the business, right? We study this all the time, running experiments all the time, and everything that we do to that gallery experience is done with experimental proof that it's driving more clicks to the business. So yes, that means that we will iterate on our surfaces, but it also means that we're doing this in the best interest of your clients.
More questions? Jackie, anything you want to add? Next question, please.
Hi, Ben Conradi. Kind of going off of the question about one of the larger producers that ends up having to reach out to individually listed Google Trusted. I went through the process of taking photos and then the system recognizing that I would, become Google Trusted, I guess is the word there. Not really certified, as you'd like to stay away from that word. But in that regard, is there any thoughts about adding some transparency? Because I do spend a lot of time getting emails from larger groups that are maybe interested in my services, but I have to communicate to them I'm not equipped. I'm a lower level producer here than what you're expecting, and that index to me could be simply improved with something like a list of equipment that I have. How does that fit in with a vision of how you want to see that community and how you want to see content creators talk amongst each other?
I don't like buying food based on written descriptions. I don't like watching movies based just on the cover. I don't like reading a book just based on the cover. I don't think I should be picking photographers just based on a few bullet points. I think I should be picking photographers based on portfolios. And so if you're producing really good, connected, high-quality experiences, I should see that in your portfolio. I don't know, maybe you guys have different opinions.
I have nothing to add at that. Yeah.
The thing I would add is that, as Charles mentioned earlier, we haven't started fixing this yet, and we're all open to suggestions. And so I think.
I'm going to curate my portfolio into a CV.
That's a great suggestion. That also could have fit into initiatives, right? I think that's excellent. How do you take a little more ownership over your profile?
Well,
That's
we
great.
did Q&A in the last session, so we
Good.
can do forum in this
Okay,
session.
this is good. Yeah. There was some comment over from the right.
Follow up with that question?
Somebody else jumped out, and then we'll come back to you.
Actually, that's a great segue. Is as a suggestion, in that in the graph, you've got the name, you got a phone number, you got an email. Is there a way? Obviously, there's a way, but as a suggestion, put a field that maybe has that independent with a link to their portfolio.
Let me just ask a clarifying question here. Their portfolio in Street View, or
No.
their portfolio on a website
Something
outside?
that can show their work. So obviously, not having a list of their equipment, like you had mentioned, but something that is an immediate link to say, wow, this is great imagery, great work, this is high quality.
You're seeing the signs of age with the existing index that predates the Street View app. The Street View app is kind of the obvious portfolio search tool today, but it doesn't have the index. So I don't want to tip our hat, nor should I. I'm not the product manager for the app. Stafford is. But I think we all agree that that's a space that we want to revisit.
Yeah, this is really nice feedback. It's helpful to understand what goes into your sales process. And I think that it certainly makes sense that whatever this flow is in the future, it helps you sell.
Dan Smigrod.
Thank you. A member of the We Get Around Network forum asks, and this is a follow-up to the gentleman with the CV question, on the new program, there is no more difference between trusted agencies and photographers, but on the higher page of Street View, there is still the difference because old agencies are listed as agencies and new agencies are listed as photographers. There's an icon for the old agency and the new agency.
Yeah, it's a mess. So it is. I mean, we know that there are a lot of, but it's inherently messy because I know countless individual photographers that would rather be an agency, so they get a couple friends together, suddenly they're an agency. Okay, well that's great. Meanwhile, you have like true agencies that are producing at agency volume, but they're really just one or two folks. And how do you cut between those two? That's a tough problem. If you look at where we've taken Trusted in the past year, I can speak a little bit to this just because this is where we made this transition a year ago. We stopped actively inviting people to sign up as agencies and just said, you're trusted. We don't care if you're a trusted country or a trusted company or a trusted individual photographer. Doesn't matter. Again, it should be the body of work that really speaks for you.
Trusted cat.
Trusted cat? Yeah.
Oh, the sheep.
Trusted sheep. Lots of, I don't know, feel free to pick whoever you want.
Is there a rule that you could play in rating or ranking either agencies or trusted photographers? You've got the data on, the machine learning data on beauty and connectedness, also have a sense of the volume of work that a photographer and agency is doing. And that might be great to have your third-party, for lack of a better word, star rating or some sort of a relatively empirical ranking based on factors that you recognize as relevant. Might be helpful to all of us.
I think it's a great suggestion. I'm looking at you guys.
So I think there's kind of a common theme to our responses here, in that they're all different ways of saying We aren't actually going to announce right now what we are doing with this listing program, but it's a great suggestion. Yeah, I absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. My name is Jonathan, and I'm from an agency in the north of Europe. You have already answered a little bit about my question here, but after you removed the see inside, and we also have a lot of cases which we even couldn't find on Google Maps. It's became a little bit different for our customers to understand why everything disappeared. And my question is like, right now the Photosphere is ranking higher than some of the Google Business View tours. Are they coming like a new function where you ensure that the photos and the things we are making are easy to find on Google, so our customers can see it, and like they pay to getting the business online? And it's a big problem for I think a lot of us that our customers even can't see anything. And as you said earlier, you will do a street view on everything, so there isn't Photosphere, there isn't different names, or so. What will the next move be? Will there be a Street View on the search who is compared for everything, Street View outside and inside, or what will the next step be?
I think Charles earlier did a good job of splitting it into two categories. One is bugs. Maybe it was you who said that. Anyway, one is
if
like...
it was a good idea, it was mine.
One is like bugs, right? So like legitimately, this is really, these are a really great set of photos. They should be showing up. So that's like a ranking bug. Versus somebody just wants to see their stuff that they paid for, but maybe there's some other really good content that is also good for that business.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on there, we have to be really careful, right? If Google Street View simply becomes pay-to-play, and you paid a photographer, and therefore you are the representation of truth in the world, then we've sold our soul, and people won't trust the platform anymore. There is value in knowing that a business endorses an image, that they've paid for it, and therefore they believe it's accurate, but it shouldn't be the final word, right? And so we have to use this in a more holistic valuation of that. And I think that it's perfectly fair to say that we don't always handle that well today. And to your point earlier, there were plenty of occasions in the last few months where traditional see inside Street View trusted imagery was not ranking as highly as Photospheres. I'm proud to say that as we have moved the Street View trusted content over to, in this sort of post-Street View editor world, into this repository where we keep all of our UGC imagery, you now benefit from the fact that there is no discerning between the two. And that's actually a healthy thing. Google shouldn't be caring what upload tool you use to bring the same 360 photos in. So that disadvantage has now disappeared, meaning you're on equal footing with anyone else who publishes 360 photos.
Okay, thank you for the answer, but just, of the listings, this is very business kind of questions, but so you don't give any insurance that if a business pay a lot of money, actually we work with some bigger businesses like big stadiums or shopping centers or hospitals, and then if there is some Photospheres outside with great colors and everything, then the hospital would just be removed, and then we don't have any business like in this program, or?
So consider this, right? You could pay a webmaster a lot of money to build a website, but if it doesn't rank, then too bad. I'm sorry to be that blunt, but as Charles said, this is not a pay-to-play business. Maps is another facet of search, and yes, by and large, if you produce high-quality content, our intention is for that to rank highly. But we can't make a specific guarantee.
I think there. I'm glad Stafford took that position. I echo that. But I think there's an opportunity to say a business has endorsed this and be transparent about that. And it's not all that different from saying when you search for hats in Vancouver, And you've got the organic results, and then you've got the ad at the top. You know, we talked about not adding ads into Street View, but if you said this was a business-endorsed image, regardless of how it ranked, that's a context where I feel like this could have a place in the world because we're being transparent about the fact that the business paid for that. We don't have any immediate plans that I'm at liberty to share or aware
Rights
of.
transfer.
Yeah, but to my knowledge, I'm not sure to what extent we're leveraging that yet. But transferring your imagery to the business is a good signal that we will rely on more and more in the future.
We want to get to a point where you're comfortable, the business is comfortable, everybody's comfortable. We just can't, you know, when you say explicit guarantee, that's not something that's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Not to take all the time, but just to understand the strategy of the Street View. Like, so you, of course, it should not be a business platform or just earning money. That's understandable, but you know, when everybody can upload it, I don't see like the big difference between an agency and a trusted photographer for a normal guy. And if the agency like living for doing this, and a normal guy just can come out and take a photo spare who is better, and then the tour just disappeared. So it's yeah, maybe a lot of us here today will lose a lot of business forward, but that's the way it is.
I honestly, emphatically don't share that view. The opportunity to say that the pie today is this big and it's going to stay this big and we're chopping up more pieces of the pie and it's cannibalizing is to miss the forest for the trees. This pie is this big today and it could be massive. This pie can be so much bigger. And if we continue to say, I don't want to chop up any more pieces of this pie, we're missing the point. We need this pie to be so big that everybody gets a large piece of the pie. And the way to do that is to make sure that everyone has the means to publish. And I understand that it's really hard to believe that because I know that there's folks that make their living on this today and they're seeing the real life example of, hey, I just went out and somebody undercut me with a won't be named Easy Pocket 360 camera and they sold it for a quarter of the price and I lost the sale. I understand that and that's truly, it's something that I'm very sensitive to. But still, in the world, most people are still not familiar with 360 photography and its value. And that shows you that there's still a tremendous amount of upside here just to build that awareness. And the only way we're going to do that is if business owners and casual sort of foodies going to restaurants and everybody else are becoming so comfortable with this that this baseline of mediocre quality is out there, and that's okay, right? There's a lot of web pages that will give you an okay answer, and then you go to other web pages that are a great one. I'd rather build this platform upon which greatness is highlighted, and the best way to do that is not to limit it to, you know, the privileged few, but instead allow everyone to publish and celebrate the best.
I want to see Street View for every business and every street in the world, and to see that refreshed every time they change. So there's a lot to go around here, I think.
Sorry for that very enthusiastic answer.
Well, I've been in this since it was Business View, so I'm really thankful for the opportunity. It's at the end of it, it's Google's product. We were able to get a revenue from this, so it's okay if you take it away. It's your business. It's okay. It doesn't matter. But either way, what if the customer from his business view, I'm sorry, with a business, from my business can arrange the order of the panoramas or the pictures that are shown in the results.
Arranging the order is sort of, oh, I'm sorry. I want to give you guys a chance. Anything, just go for it if either of you are inspired.
I mean, I would offer, I told a bunch of you this over lunch, that we are interested in continuously improving these imagery experiences, and to do something where we were to lock in and guarantee an entry point would impact our ability to iterate in the future. I think that conceptually it's a very valid idea on the surface, but there are reasons that it becomes complicated down the line. And I will leave you with that level of vague statement, and maybe in Street View Summit 2018 we'll have some exciting stuff
But I mean, See Inside kind of bit a lot of us in the butt, right? And do you really want us to try to commit to See Inside v2 and then change that on you? I mean, isn't it better to just acknowledge the fact that Google has really made its name for organic results and instead start to support an ecosystem where SEO in the context of what makes a good 360 experience is the trade itself and not, you know, this new sort of version of See Inside that might run away in the future as well? I'd rather lean into that SEO concept, I think. And that means us being more transparent with you about the ranking signals so that you can help influence and get those results higher up.
Well, the ranking idea, it's great for me, but just if I have my business account and I manage my business from there, and I can even delete pictures that are not related to my business, thinking as a customer, it'll be good for me, or I would love to be able to give order to that and give the
Yep.
order
Yep.
to what I think is better for my business.
I think as long as imagery was transferred to you, that is the best signal, as Jackie mentioned earlier, that we're going to have to say that you endorse this. And that is certainly not without value.
Right, kind of more of a technical question, just as things are moving forward in the timeline of everything. I really enjoy the new Street View app platform. All the new tours that I've done is giving me a lot more information than what I had before. I love that. To be honest, I don't even know how many tours I've shot at this point, and I know that there's going to be a transition period of all of our tours that we've shot in the past. Are those going to be transferred into this new system so that we can see them? That's a yes, okay. And is there a timeline at all for that to happen?
As soon as we can.
It's like a year at this point, like 2018 or something.
Yeah, no. We really want this to happen as soon as we can.
Okay, that's all I needed, was to know that it is happening and it will all be in that format. The last thing is that when I look at them right now, I know there's some limitations with photo galleries and how that they're implemented in the Google My Business. I think there's a 200 number right now limitation, and some of my tours are much larger than that, and I know levels are coming back very soon, but some of the ones I've done recently have no levels, and therefore with that 200 image limitation, there's actually no way to get to some of the other places at all in them. My main question, or the biggest thing I would love to see or just know, is will they continue to be multiple single panoramic images in the gallery, or will it go back to more of a, this is a floor, or this is a path? What's that?
Which gallery are you talking about?
The gallery that the business owners have, where their 360s are currently being placed, where you click 360, and if you have 300 panos, you see 200. I did like before there was one dot or one thing, and they could go in. And I'm not asking for See Inside again. I'm just asking for the idea of, will there just be multiple in there, or will it be a single orange dot or 500 blue dots?
Just to clarify, so this is in GMB, or this is?
I think we can answer it on multiple levels, and I think
Sure.
the audience would enjoy hearing those levels. So there is thumbnail galleries in GMB. There's also map representation in the Maps and Street View products. I think we should address both.
Is
a
that
great
the
question.
royal we, or?
No, it's the collective we here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. so fire away.
Who knows the answer about GMB? I know.
Go ahead.
No, I don't think we know.
Yeah.
The joke that went over everybody's head is I was suggesting that you answer
Okay,
the
thank you.
question.
It went over my head at least, if that's what we mean by everybody. So the question here about clustering images together. We will continue to work on this, but we'd like to take a more dynamic approach to say that a bunch of these images are very visually similar. They're in a very similar space, and essentially dedupe showing all of those results in the different gallery thumbnail contexts. This is ultimately going to be a more extensible, a more flexible approach for us, because this idea of islands is good, and certainly something that we may continue to see other manifestations of in Street View in the future. But it's not a one-size-fits-all, because there's too many cases where you want to show the master suite, you want to show the bathroom, you want those connected. You want to show the pool, you don't want the pool connected to the master suite. A lot of these little different rules, they'll come back to bite you. And so what we can, at a minimum, do is say that people are spatially navigating to an area, or they searched for a place, and here's the top 15 results that seem to represent a nice diversity of that space. The tenets of that are already in place today, and Jackie or Sagarika, who's also part of our engineering team, could probably speak to that at greater detail if people were interested. I think that's a fairly true answer, both in terms of the thumbnail context, but also the pins, right? We as well, in the pin context, are trying not to show you 15 pins that are right on top of each other in the same place. We'd rather say that we recognize that there's content here, and that's what you're interested in. There's content here.
All right, so I think I have enough context now to give an
Go for it. I primed it.
Yeah, thank you. So there's, a few different ways to see this content. There, you can see it on maps, you can see it in our app, you can see it through GMB, whatever. And some of these ways, we want that content to be ranked and represented in a way that is useful to the viewer. But there's also, and that would be, let's see, maybe a few photos that show a lobby, a few photos that show the restaurant, whatever. There's also value, though, in the photo owner having the ability to see everything and be able to delete stuff that shouldn't be there, just have some more control.
Imagery they
over.
own. I just want to clarify, not contributions from others.
Sorry, yes, the actual owner of the photos to take control of their imagery. So there is, we want there to be different experiences for these two cases. And so whether or not there's this 200 photo limit or whatever, the idea is that in the case of I want to get a representation of a place, you see ranked images that show you what a place is like. And in the case where I need to manage my photos, you are able to see everything.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Kind of just returning to the subject of ranking and things like that. From your vision, obviously new people that are downloading the app and adding content are getting ranked and they meet a certain threshold. You have a lot of data back there, and I'm assuming metrics change over time and all that kind of stuff. In theory, who would you share that ranking with, and who would have visibility with that ranking?
People ranking, just to be clear?
Content producers, all of us here.
Contributor ranking.
So I would love to know what my beautiness factor is. Am I going to get to see my beautiness factor?
Do you get to see your Lyft customer rank?
Uber lets you know.
I drive for Lyft and Uber, I'll tell you that, and I very much enjoy the badges I get from the passengers. They're like, oh, clean car, give you a badge for that. I've got 17 clean car badges. So I know that doesn't matter for the income receivers here, but since I'm eating taxi cab drivers' lunch, and apparently their lunch too, do I get to know how I compare next to them?
I think we should definitely offer a clean car badge in the Street View app. But as far as releasing data on on that sort of thing, we need to be a little careful. I am open to providing more stats and kind of more interesting stuff along those lines, but ranking is an area that we need to tread carefully.
Tomorrow we'll hear from Catherine Motes on some of our scaling programs that we're focused on supporting this year. Stafford touched very lightly today on 4 different categories of contributors. The sort of broad consumer base, trusted photographers, agencies, and enterprise organizations. And I won't take the wind out of Catherine's sails, but I will say that the idea that supporting the consumer and the trusted side of things with some form of gamification or sense of competition could be very compelling. We need to see enough signal from the industry that this will be well received before we're going to invest heavily in anything like that. And so this year will be very telling for us.
There was somebody right here.
If I'm hearing the answer there is those statistics exist and there's potential they could be shared with us.
Oh, well, the
No.
data always exists, right? And whether or not we're actually looking for it is a different question.
I am very excited about giving badge type things for achieving different important milestones, right? I'm treading very carefully because I don't want to hear at Street View Summit 2018 you didn't provide the ranking badge, but the overall notion excites me.
Okay, there's another question here.
Come back to the blue dots and yellow dots.
Oh, awesome.
I've shot several of the big malls, the 200 plus panoramics. So when you look at a map, it's blue. It's all blue because it's 1 floor, 2 floor, 3 floor. Now another store in this mall called me, can they have a virtual tour? Well, I said yes, but they cannot find themselves because of the blue dots. I mean, all the hit all the time is a mall. But the business, like Hugo Boss store, cannot find themselves because of that.
Yeah. So I think there's multiple issues here, and we can unpack them together. One is that good connected experiences are getting sort of buried by a lot of disconnected individual 360 photos. There's also the issue of blue dots versus orange dots. And then there's potentially the issue of how do we represent a space like a store that's been broadly captured as anything other than dots. Like, how do you represent that? So I'm hearing 3 issues here. I don't want to answer all of them. I'm kind of looking really at Jackie and Sagarika on the engineering side, at what level they feel comfortable discussing some of our plans on showing, and it's fine if the answer is there is no comfort right now.
Sagarika, how lucky it is that you're sitting next to a microphone.
I am. It's like it was planned or something. So that's a very good point. I can talk to one of those issues there, the blue dots versus the orange dots versus the blue lines. We are looking into doing blue lines definitely for the outdoor Street View experience, whether the panoramas come from Google or from users. That's something we want consistent. We're also looking to do that indoors. It's a little bit trickier because it starts to become, when you don't have a road or a pathway to follow, it starts to become a spider web. So we're looking at how we can clean up that data. So instead of having a mass of blue dots, you have a line which says, oh, these are spots that I can drag the Pegman into and see the most relevant panorama for that. The second part of that is the ranking, of course. Even when you drag the Pegman down, we have to show you a connected experience, so working on fixing that as well.
And then the third part is blue versus orange. Blue wins, right? So that's kind of the short answer, is orange goes away as the Street View editor goes away. But we'll just make sure that the great content that was formerly represented by orange hopefully continues to rank more highly. It's more favored when you drop Pegman because, again, it's connected, it comes from better sources, it's higher quality, et cetera.
You would not believe, actually you probably would believe, how many times we've gotten the feedback that it's frustrating when you drop Pegman and it lands on an unconnected pano. So we're well aware of that and actively fixing it.
And also I wonder if part of the problem is that if you're in a mall that has multiple floors and you've got tons of connected stuff that's just all on top of each other, how do you find the one you're looking for? And I don't think we have a really great answer for that in Maps right now, aside from having to say, I'm looking for this place, and then find the photos after you've found the place itself. But hopefully we'll have something that we can do, maybe something that's like
it's the level editor
floors.
should support that, right?
Yeah, but on Maps, you can't say, I want to look at floor 2, or...
something else that's worth considering here is that a lot of this mindset is specific to desktop maps, and on mobile maps, the predominant way of entering imagery is from the place page. So yes, this is a problem, but also understand that it's limited to a specific facet of the product.
I know.
Yeah. Shows you more. It's actually, the big red dots for those folks that didn't hear the observation, it was that in the Street View app, we do continue to reevaluate what the dots should look like at different zoom scales, and that we are using big and little dots to communicate things. I just want to clarify that the big dots represent a cluster of things, not necessarily more important things. The importance comes into play in that we're only going to show you the top 150 or so results in any viewport, and so there again, you want to be in the top 150. Top 150 at a zoom scale of, say, Tokyo, you've created some extremely impressive content. But by the time you get down to HapoN, hopefully, very likely there are just 150 dots in Totem, and everybody is getting their chance at fame. More questions? Yes?
Thank you for bringing the levels back. How about the starting point?
Starting
point, because right now, when the people look, they see a toilet, they see the wall, they see something, but not the starting point. Like some of my clients, they are difficult to find, so what I do, I shoot a pathway to them. And all they see is a street or a forest, but not the entryway.
So I heard your question, and I understand your question, and I'd still like to broaden it to answer it in two different ways, which is the starting orientation and the starting pano, the starting 360 photo. I can't even keep my own nomenclature straight. I don't want to necessarily be the only one that answers those, but I think we should try to address both of those, so I'm looking at you three.
Yeah.
Jackie, it's your turn to answer this one.
Yes. So I think we do an extremely poor job right now of picking the view that you get to see when you click on a Pano 360 photo.
You're talking about the initial orientation.
So initial orientation, yeah. So I think we do a pretty poor job of that right now. It's getting better. Using some algorithmically, it's getting better. And so as we push out new versions of the Street View app, for example, or just like looking at it on maps right now, you should start seeing some improvements. Also, as we fix bugs.
There are countless situations where it's done a great job. It's very similar to Kolja was showing director mode. The ML, the machine learning that's being used here to find the most interesting part of the 360 photo is, in my experience, most of the time does a great job. It's just that when it fails, and certainly in a world where this is your bread and butter, there are plenty of examples where it fails pretty terribly, and we need to keep those situations from happening. And so we can probably continue to try to bolster our efforts on the machine learning side. I think the writing on the wall here amongst many of the pros in our attendance is, no, just give me the ability to pick it for you. I can tell you what the best thing is. I hear you loud and clear. I think it's just a matter of where that might stack up in other priorities.
So we have talked about using the initial view params provided by XMP. I don't have anything to specifically announce right now, but if we were to implement something, that's probably how we would do it. The recent issues with Panos defaulting to north, that was not intended. Segrika, it looked like you were about to comment on this topic.
I think Jackie covered it. The initial view you looked at often either defaulted to where the camera was pointing north, as you said, heading of 0, or an arbitrary, I think, 6th away, which was weird.
60 degrees off.
Something like that. But we've done some experiments on that, seen good results. I don't know whether for indoor or outdoor, they tend to be very different machine learning models based on whether it's indoor or outdoor, what an interesting view is. But we're trying to incorporate that more into what we're surfacing as the landing point.
Yeah.
So I think we should just rename this Dirty Laundry at this point, because that's kind of what we're up here doing. Show of hands, because I don't want to waste a lot of time, and if there's no interest. Is there interest in the other interpretation of that question, which is influence over which 360 photo is chosen as the starting point for a collection?
I'm sure pretty much everyone's going to raise their hand on this one.
Okay.
But we sort of answered it earlier, which is that I think it makes sense from the perspective of the photographer, but it's also not something that we can commit to at this point. That this is likely to just end up, being let's say that we were to implement that right now, it would probably be our see inside of 2018 when we, for one reason or another, find it to be something we can't support going forward. There are far too many things in flight in the imagery gallery to make that sort of commitment.
And it really wouldn't be leaning on Google's greatest strengths. I mean, historically, we're a company that can take enough data from billions of people looking at things, and I'm not saying we always succeed, but that is the bar that we should set for ourselves, is to help you know what the best representation of that space is, and give the business the confidence to say, everybody wanted to look at the bar in your restaurant, so we're showing them the bar, right? That's what we should strive for.
Now, there has been a story going around where we've been showing a toilet as the entry point for a business.
Send it to us.
Yeah.
Send it to us.
I mean, I can think of a few venues where the toilet might actually be the most interesting, but aside from that, it's not our intention to show something that's totally at odds with what the business owner wants.
Yeah.
We aim to drive as many visits as possible to the place page. So. Going forward, unless you're a toilet store or something like that, we're not trying to do that sort of thing. We're trying to improve this to the point where everybody's happy.
You're seeing real transparency. We're a conduit to the engineers. The engineers want to address these problems. Bring them to us. We want to address them for you as well. Let's move on beyond toilet things for a moment and touch on some other topics. Any other questions here in the audience? I see a couple here. There's some in the back. Maybe we can just move a strip up there.
Yes, I could relate to brick wall and toilet being the starting points. That demo that I did during my talk today, Communitech published in Street View. Their initial scene was the toilet. So it is painful to explain to clients why on Google Street View their first point is that. And yeah, maybe once multiple floors are supported, that will be another thing where there could be some control done. But my question was about blue dots and showing the history, which blue dots were visited. When there are a couple dozen of them inside the building, it would be advantageous to see which ones were visited and maybe show them with a different color or unfilled. That brings me back to 93, 94, where the web started, and the links, visited links were shown in different color until CSS came about, and now you don't know where you've been or where you haven't been yet. So any plans to show visited links for inside panels and maybe also on Street View, the history of neighborhood?
I mean, immediately my response there is, that's awesome, we should totally do that. But let me dig into that a little bit more. We are making very, very clear at this event today and tomorrow that we strongly prioritize connected experiences, right? The idea being that you drop people into a place where their mental model for how to navigate is not thinking, did I go to this pin or this pin? Their mental model is, I went into the store, I went down the aisle, I turned right, I saw this section, I don't think I saw the couches over here, I'm going to go back over here. And in that type of model where we really are prioritizing experiences and not individual 360 photos, to a large extent this should get addressed just by virtue of that. That's not to say that there isn't value, but I'd rather focus our very limited resources, even at Google scale we have limited resources, on prioritizing the connections over where you've been or haven't been.
Does that answer your question?
It may not be the answer you're looking for, but did I address it correctly?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a cool idea. I'd love to invite more folks in the audience to suggest interesting new ideas like that as well.
I'm pretty sure our UX folks would kill us if we asked them to design that.
But we didn't bring
UX being user experience design folks.
We should probably promise all sorts of cool UX changes since they're not here today. So.
Okay, more questions? There's a few here in the middle.
Tommy from Tokyo. I'd like to know more about the future of 360 contents in terms of photo and video. For example, my client in Indonesia, he was asking about the 360 contents, but he didn't actually expect any photo or video. It doesn't really matter for him if it's photo or video. But he said, unless it's immersive and interactivity, it has interactivity, then fine. So the result, what we did is to capture 360 photo there, and then make 4 panoramic photos and put 4 photos on one video timeline, and then show it through Daydream. And it was, totally immersive and perfect. And we have a service as a 360 video and providing 360 video service for our customers. But we start our business as a trusted agency and shoot 360 photo only at the beginning. But now it's kind of like combining photo and video, right? So, and actually, how many people shooting video as a service and providing? Raise you guys hands up, please. Video service for customers. Yeah, quite a few.
Seeing some timid hands, but
10. Yeah, that's why I'd like to know more about the future opinion from you guys in terms of technology and industry sides or something.
I mean, we're totally
Anything.
interested. We're totally interested in it. It's just right now we have a map as a platform, and so how do you this actually sounds very similar to what I said last year, but how do you find a 360 video on a map? There's a bunch of different ways that this could be done, and it's really exciting. We want to do stuff like this. We just have to figure out what the right thing is for us.
In my opinion, actually, was that when I first experienced Google Earth VR through Daydream in Australia, it was totally, immersive and perfect. There was, it had interactivity and also had quality, and it works really, really, smoothly. So at that point, Google Earth VR was really immersive, and I thought it was a perfect solution.
I think I have a different take than potentially my peers here. I want the world in the next few years to think of 3 different ways of consuming 360 media. That you have 360 photos, you have 360 videos, and you have the ability to navigate spatially. And in that sense, 360 video is simply a means to an end. It's a more efficient means of collection. And I think that if we can really get to that paradigm where people think of space as being something that they're collecting, that then you open up all new categories, new avenues for consumption. For example, when you take the Gyraptic I/O that's going to capture at exactly 5 frames per second, and you run around for 5 minutes through this space, and you shoot this awesome spatial experience, there would be nothing that would prohibit Google from, in the future, letting you fly through those frames and relive that experience. But it's not as a video, it's in Street View. It's just basically autoplay, that type of thing. But I would always want, personally, the context to come from the perspective of, I'm in space. I could stop at any moment and move translationally to something else in this space. Not this entirely sort of forced lockdown, lean-back experience where I'm not in control. Because that, I think, is in the DNA of Street View, is that you always remain in control.
So I think that, I don't completely disagree with you. Okay. I think that in the short term, that these facets that exist outside the direct Street View ecosystem, like 360 video and 360 live streaming, are still very beneficial to all of us, right? They facilitate the sale of cameras and the development of hardware and the overall spread of excitement around 360 imagery. I do still see, some place for 360 video outside a fully, immersive virtual world that you can navigate. I think that there's tremendous potential for stationary 360 video to capture a really immersive experience that just photos can't. I do agree that navigation is important to Street View, but at the same time, let's say that you're like the intercontinental Bora Bora, and you really want to capture the amazement of the glass bottom bungalow. And what better way to do that than a spherical video where you can watch the fish swim underneath on maybe a kind of graceful 1-minute loop. That sort of stuff. Now we're just kind of getting into cool things that we could all do with the technology in the future. But that sort of stuff just really appeals to me, right? And I would actually love to see a show of hands here as to, has anybody heard from your clients any interest in doing stuff with 360 video? Anybody? Cool. So some people. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's actually a sort of a nice intersection between Stafford's point of view and my own, which is, and this is historically something that I've been in favor of as well. If we were to do video in the future, it would be very important to me that the video be located in specific spots where you could still move through that connectivity graph to other things. As soon as you start to say that the video moves around and you kind of have to get stuck into it, I think we're really missing the point. At that point, maybe this is more of a YouTube experience. As long as this can continue to be part of that graph, then I think there could be a future.
Does that speak to annotation?
I don't see the connection, but annotations could be a good question if you want to jump into that.
And before we jump into annotations, I would say that I totally agree with the notion that we shouldn't have moving video in Street View specifically. I think that there are other homes for that content at Google. The new Google Earth, for example, might be another cool home for that. But it is my hope that our new standard around spatial media and video would help keep, like we're using that in Street View to extract frames from the video, but it might also be useful for future clients of moving videos to kind of manage the geoposition during movement.
That's a great point.
Now that soapbox is over, let's hear about your question. Sorry.
In terms of annotation, if you're talking about video, here's the icon to play the video. Here's the icon to hear the sound. Here's the icon to whatever that might be.
To rephrase the question for folks that couldn't hear, could you have something where here's the icon to play the video, here's the icon to play the sound, and so on? I guess I'll answer it since I'm already talking. We've had that functionality in the Street View APIs that are part of the Maps API suite for some time. We've toyed with ideas in the Street View, in the first-party client side, but we don't have anything to announce today. I do think that there have been some absolutely fantastic prior works here that we would love to emulate. Were we to ever do something like this in our first-party clients. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Just a meta observation. I think everything you just said I agree with. I think the thing that we have to keep in mind, I sound so negative, but there have already been today, I'd say probably 10 suggestions that I think are rock solid that can and probably will improve the future of Street View. But for every one of those, there's 10 others that are really, really good, but I would say are second tier. And if we're not careful and we prioritize the wrong things, then you don't get the first tier solutions that you need. So I just want this sort of healthy sense of pragmatism here, that as our team goes and tries to embark on the next generation of features, that you bear patience with us, that we're doing our best to prioritize those things that we think will help you have the greatest level of impact. And sometimes it's not those tier 2 things. That's not to say that annotations aren't, but it's just a sort of a broader comment.
Yeah, you all know at this point that we have a limit to what we can spend our time on. And the fact is that right now we're spending our time on acquiring a lot more Street View. And some of the really fun features, unfortunately, have to fall to the side as we focus on
fixing the bugs.
Yeah, it's supporting pros and supporting scale. The two themes we kicked off today, those are the two somewhat tangential directions that we need to lock down. And so you need to have a good answer for why See Inside's not there anymore, and you need to have a good way to go for a drive for an hour and not have to worry about muddling through everything when you go and collect. So it looks like we are basically out of time. I want to thank you all very, very much for participating. Arigato gozaimashita. And a reminder to everybody that please bring your badge tomorrow. Your badge is not going to be here waiting for you. And I'm not sure we're going to be very forgiving if you forget it. So don't forget. Also, there will be some cool swag tomorrow. So that's your bribe for coming back. Not that there wouldn't be enough reason already. And I think that we're doing some raffles not raffles. There were two companies, 360fly and Ricoh, that did their own competitions / giveaways. Am I correct? Okay. And so we're going to handle that very quickly, and then we're going to go have drinks, and we can keep on talking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, please, before you get up, you might be winning a camera, so please don't go anywhere. Come on up, please, 360fly. Ricoh, did you want to do this as well in just a second?
First of all, thank you everyone for giving us your business card. Hey, this is for the 360fly. Something promo. You know what? Outstanding, my friend. Please read the winner.
Neil Toker of NC-Tech. I like it. That's the spirit of the community coming together.
The tide that raises all boats.
There you go.
Yep.
Anyway, Neil, you can come up afterward.
Yeah.
Thank you, 360fly. And also, we've got Takaharu Ton from Ricoh, and you want to pick your winner?
Hey, so thank you for joining our raffle today. So we have a Ricoh Theta SC for you. So Charles, could you pick one?
Yes,
for
drum
the
roll.
winner. Ta-da!
Fumihito Takanaka.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, drink time. Thanks.